Harvey the Goldfish, Furniture Mayhem, and Early Compatibility Doubts. The introduction of Harvey the Goldfish marks the precise moment when Carol Bradford's eccentricity ceases to be merely conversational and becomes a tangible living presence inside Lucy Carmichael's carefully ordered apartment. Until this point, the audience has been invited to regard Carol's refinements and oddities as charming peculiarities of speech and manner. The sneeze that shakes the room, the empty spectacle frames the latter story. And the loud finger wetters have all prepared the ground. Now the ground itself shifts. Carol refuses Lucy's sensible impulse to close the window because Harvey likes it open. The name is spoken with the same calm, proprietary affection another woman might use for a child or a beloved cat. When Lucy, still absorbing the information, asks who Harvey is, Carol's answer is delivered without the slightest awareness that it might strike anyone as unusual. My goldfish. Lucille Ball's reaction is a perfect miniature of the larger comic journey the character is about to undertake. Her eyes widen, her posture stiffens almost imperceptibly, and then, with the resilient optimism that defines Lucy Carmichael, she decides to embrace the situation. Of course, Harvey is welcome. The manager does not allow pets, she concedes, but as long as the goldfish is housebroken, the rule can be bent. The joke is gentle, never mocking, and it allows Carol to display a dry, self-aware humor that momentarily reassures both Lucy and the audience. Carol laughs, thanks Lucy for her understanding, and announces that she will retrieve Harvey because he does not like to be left out of things. The line is pure character, even a goldfish is granted the courtesy of inclusion. The physical retrieval of Harvey provides the first of several repeated pratfalls involving the treacherous step. Carol, carrying the fishbowl with maternal care, forgets the step once more and stumbles. Lucy's embarrassment is immediate and genuine. She apologizes, insists she does the same thing all the time, and offers the extravagant solution of installing a ski lift. The exaggeration is classic Lucy, a verbal flourish that converts domestic hazard into comic spectacle. Carol recovers with the same composure she showed earlier, assuring Lucy that Harvey is fine, that he likes to play rough. The goldfish is placed on the table with ceremonial tenderness. Carol addresses him directly, sweet little baby, and instructs him to feel at home. The moment is simultaneously absurd and oddly touching. In the middle of a first meeting between two adult women, a goldfish has been granted the status of a family member whose comfort must be considered. What follows is one of the most visually eloquent sequences of domestic comedy the series ever produced. Carol, having settled Harvey, turns her attention to the apartment itself. She asks permission to hang something and receives Lucy's open-hearted invitation to treat the place as her own home. The permission is all the encouragement she requires. With quiet, focused energy, she begins to rearrange the living room according to an aesthetic logic that is entirely her own. A chair is moved. The table with the flowers is shifted to create what she describes as a nice, cozy little corner. The couch is angled for greater advantage. Another chair is repositioned. Finally, Harvey himself is relocated so that he can watch television because he is crazy about Flipper. Each adjustment is accompanied by Carol's bright, confident commentary. She asks Lucy whether the new arrangement does not look better, and Lucy, caught between politeness and the growing realization that her carefully prepared apartment is being systematically reinvented, can only murmur agreement. Lucille Ball's performance during the Furniture Mayhem is a masterwork of restrained physical comedy. She does not protest. She does not physically intervene. Instead, she stands in the middle of the transforming space, her body registering small shocks of displacement as familiar objects disappear from their expected positions and reappear in unexpected ones. Her eyes track each movement. Her hands make tiny aborted gestures of assistance or objection that never quite become complete. The comedy arises from the collision between Lucy's desire to be a gracious hostess and her dawning awareness that the gracious hostess is rapidly losing control of her own environment. When Carol places Harvey in his new viewing position and addresses him as sweetheart, while Mommy has her coffee, the maternal language applied to a goldfish completes the portrait of a woman whose emotional life is organized according to rules the rest of the world does not share. The arrival of Mary Jane, while Carol is taking a shower, provides the necessary external perspective. Mary Jane, played with warm practicality, enters the transformed apartment and immediately notices the changes. Lucy's explanation, "My new roomie rearranged my furniture. I love it," is delivered with a brightness that does not quite conceal the underlying uncertainty. Mary Jane examines the new arrangement, pronounces some of it an improvement over the abstract painting, and observes that Carol must be a real homebody. The comment is meant as praise, yet it lands with ironic force for the audience who have just watched the homebody in energetic action. Lucy's private confidences to Mary Jane mark the first explicit acknowledgement that living with Carol may prove difficult. The laugh like a hyena, the sneeze like a sonic blast, these descriptions are offered not with malice but with the slightly desperate humor of a woman who is already beginning to calculate the cost of the arrangement she herself initiated. When Carol emerges and is formally introduced to Mary Jane, the social comedy intensifies. Carol has found a ribbon on the dresser and inquires about its origin. Lucy's explanation that she won 4th place in a beauty contest years earlier is met with Carol's delighted full-throated laughter. The sound is exactly as Lucy described it: loud, unrestrained, almost alarming in its volume and duration. Lucille Ball's face during the laughter is a study in polite endurance. She smiles. She waits. She endures. The audience understands that this is the laugh she will be living with from now on. Carol's subsequent explanation that she was vocalizing and that this is the way she vocalizes because she sings in a choir adds another layer of eccentric justification. The choir meets every Saturday afternoon. She has little social life. She is shy around people, yet singing makes her feel more at ease. The self-portrait is consistent with everything the audience has already learned. Carol is a woman of intense interior life who finds safety in structured, slightly formal activities, and who expresses herself most freely in ways that can be startling to others. The conversation about leisure activities further illuminates the gap between the two women. Carol reads a great deal. When pressed about going out after work, she describes an after-hours research library near the university that remains open until 10 o'clock. The revelation that her idea of nightlife is another library is pure character comedy. Lucy's attempt to steer the discussion toward meeting young men from the university produces Carol's first attack of hiccups. The hiccups are triggered by nervousness, and the topic of going out with boys is precisely the subject that makes her nervous. The physical symptom is both funny and revealing. Carol's body betrays the social anxiety her careful manners attempt to conceal. Lucy and Mary Jane exchange glances that communicate volumes. The project of drawing Carol out of her shell is going to require more than ordinary effort. Throughout this entire sequence, the series maintains its essential kindness. Carol is never presented as a figure of ridicule. Her goldfish, her furniture rearrangements, her hyena laugh, her sonic sneeze, her choir vocalizing, and her library-centered social life are all treated as legitimate expressions of a particular personality. The comedy arises from the collision of that personality with Lucy's more conventional, if equally eccentric, expectations. Lucille Ball's genius lies in allowing the audience to see both the impossibility and the strange attractiveness of the arrangement. Lucy wants a refined, intelligent, pleasant roommate who will share expenses and provide companionship. What she has received is a woman who travels with a goldfish named Harvey, who rearranges furniture according to an internal aesthetic logic, who laughs and sneezes with alarming force, and who becomes hiccuping with anxiety at the mere mention of male company. The gap between desire and reality is the classic engine of Lucy comedy, and here it is running at full power. The cultural context of the mid-1960s enriches every detail. Goldfish as pets occupied a modest place in the domestic hierarchy, yet treating one with the full emotional apparatus of parenthood was already recognizable as comic excess. Furniture rearrangement as an expression of personality spoke to an era in which the home was still regarded as a primary canvas for feminine self-expression. The after-hours library as a site of recreation evokes a time when public institutions retained a stronger claim on the leisure hours of single adults. Carol's shyness around men, expressed through the physical comedy of hiccups, reflects the lingering social scripts that made direct discussion of dating a source of visible discomfort for certain temperaments. By the close of this movement, the audience has been given a complete and affectionate understanding of the domestic experiment that is underway. Harvey the goldfish has been installed as a permanent resident with television privileges. The living room has been reinvented according to Carol's vision. Mary Jane has served as the voice of external observation, confirming both the charm and the potential difficulty of the new arrangement. Lucy has begun the internal calculation that will occupy her for the remainder of the shared story: how to live with a woman whose every natural impulse is both endearing and exhausting. Lucille Ball carries the sequence with the same generous precision she brings to every major comic passage in the series. She does not condescend to Carol. She does not ask the audience to reject her. She simply stands in the middle of the transformed apartment, smiling with determined optimism, and prepares to discover what it will mean to share her life with a goldfish-loving, furniture-moving, hyena-laughing, sonic-sneezing, choir vocalizing librarian who gets the hiccups at the thought of boys. The comedy is already rich. The complications are only beginning.